people, and today I'm absolutely delighted to introduce you a watch tuber that I actually take the time to watch myself, and for a very good reason. That's because Anthony Farrer, also known as the Timepiece Gentleman, is quite a rare commodity in the YouTube world in the fact that he's an active watch dealer as well as a very busy active watch YouTuber. Anthony, welcome to the channel.
Thank you, Paul. And I'm also a fan of yours, man. I've been watching your videos for well over 6 to 8 months. And it was a goal before I started my channel to be on this channel one time with you. So I do very much appreciate you having me on.
You, my friend, are more than welcome. So for all of my viewers that, or for any of my viewers that haven't yet seen you at least, and I'll be disappointed if they haven't, but tell us, first of all, whereabouts you are in the world.
So home base for me is Dallas, Texas in the United States. I was born and raised here.
Fantastic. Somewhere where I've always wanted to visit. So when all this nonsense is over, you might just be seeing me. Tell us a bit about yourself and how you came into watch dealing.
So the first video I posted on YouTube was about my story and how I ended up here. And it goes into a lot more detail than what we'll cover in this interview. But basically, man, I always had this passion for watches. It started back in high school. I remember getting my first Fossil watch. And then a year later, I bought my second one. In early adulthood, when I was 21, 22 years old, I remember having a collection of, I'd say 25 pieces or so in between the $300 and the $1,000 price point. And I remember thinking back then that I was like, damn, this is cool. I walk into my closet and I have a watch for every occasion. Now, at that time, it was just, I loved having a lot of watches. I worked in real estate, and as I made money, I'd buy watches. Now, I go into a lot more detail, like I said in my video, but some bad choices in young adulthood, in early adulthood, landed me in prison a couple times. And then there was a day where I was sitting in a halfway house, getting out about 4 years ago, and I was trying to decide what I wanted to do with my life. Now, I remembered thinking that, if I were to go back into real estate, yes, I could make a lot of money, but I didn't really want to chase a paycheck anymore. I thought, why not try something that would actually be fun? And when I did that, I remembered it was kind of the same night that I was online and I was looking and I saw this information about watch dealing. And then I started thinking back to early adulthood where I loved watches. And I thought, I don't know if it's going to be a job or anything, but why not try it out? Like, that would be fun to buy and sell watches. So it's funny. One of my friends snuck a cell phone into the halfway house for me, and I found this watch on Craigslist, and I made a deal with this guy. He was asking $1,800. I negotiated it down to $1,300. And the next day I got out, I drove, went and bought the watch, brought it back, and I posted it for sale right back on Craigslist. And I sold it 3 days later, and I made $500. Now, when I was counting the profit out, that is when the light bulb came on, and I knew this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. That was fun. So I got out, and eventually I took to the streets, networking and learning literally everything I could about watches. So
it's a great story. And anybody that hasn't seen that video, I think, do you know what, Anthony? I'll be straight with you, my friend. I think it was your honesty that attracted me to that video, and I thought it was hugely inspirational for a lot of people.
I appreciate that.
No, I genuinely mean that. I'm not just saying it. I thought it was a hugely honest, open and inspirational video. And I particularly, something that I recognised in you was when you said that fatherhood came along and changed your life, and you put a photo up of your your son, I believe it is. And I think it touched me as a human being. And it was very pleasant to watch your story and watch it evolve, if you don't mind me saying.
I don't. I appreciate that, man. It was, fatherhood. If to anybody out there watching, I was one of the people that never wanted kids. The soccer dad lifestyle dream. It's nothing bad. It just never appealed to me.
Yeah.
And so I never thought I was going to have a kid, but I'll tell you, man, now I knew I was still in my my young stages of messing up, but I knew I had a kid on the way. And the hardest part about that was, when I found out he was on the way, 3 months later, I was off, and he was born while I was gone. I remember thinking it could be years before I get out and get to see him. Luckily enough, I got out when he was still only 4 months old. And that was the change when the first time him and his mother came to Dallas to visit. So that was that was the changing thing. So.
Well, they are the light of our lives without a doubt. Let me ask you a question. What's it like out there as a watch dealer in the US? I mean, you've got a much larger population than we have here in the UK, for example. But what's it like finding stock out there? Because you're selling quality watches. It's just not run-of-the-mill stuff. These are high-end pieces. How are you finding it getting stock?
So I've been asked this question before by some other dealers, is how do they find inventory? And it's guys wanting to get in the business and get started. And for me, it's a little bit different of a story because I didn't go the traditional route of having to wholesale dealer to dealer and come up in the wholesale business. I guess I built a platform on social media and I deal directly with retail buyers. So for myself, finding stock is not as hard as I would think if you don't have those retail outlets. So social media is my business and I can put it out there that I'm looking for this and that. And I have guys just calling me every day, offering me stuff that I don't even need. So in that sense, it's okay. It's not that bad for me to find stock. But what I will say is on a dealer, both in the wholesale and the retail level, just in the last 3 months, it's actually been pretty tough finding inventory, and even at market pricing. With when a retail buyer comes to me and they talk about how hard it is to get these watches, majority of the times what they're talking about is how hard it is to get these things at retail pricing, or even what I like to call last week's pricing. When you were a dealer, how many times did someone come to you and say, hey, I'm interested in this watch, what's the price? You give them the price based on current market value, and they're like, okay, I want to shop it around. I want to think about it. 2 weeks later, they come back and they say, hey, I'm ready to buy that piece at last week's price. And you can't do it anymore. Now that makes it really hard to find stock. So
it's a really fast moving industry now. I think probably a lot faster moving when I was closer to your age. You guys are fortunate in many respects because I don't know, what sort of percentage would you say you do of your business on a platform such as WhatsApp?
Oh, well, now, I'm on there. So my business partner, Marco, he does more of the buying in the wholesale community. So he spends a lot more time. He spends 99% of his time on WhatsApp, and I can't even count how many groups. I still spend a fair amount of time on there looking for watches that I just can't find. And that's where it's all moved. When I was first coming up, it was Facebook groups, and you started to see these Facebook groups pop up over everywhere. And then it moved to a little bit of Instagram, or maybe I just wasn't familiar with WhatsApp as much. But in the last year and a half, pretty much everything is done via WhatsApp.
And I guess it's the same as in the UK and in Europe, etc. The hot models, all the same across the world right now. How are you finding acquiring some of the hotter models? Because I guess that's what your customers are coming to you for, the Daytonas, the Submariners, etc. You're having to buy them off flippers yourself, I guess, most of the time.
So I do get, like I said, going back to the beginning of that question was I'm lucky enough to get offered a lot of this stuff, not from retail or not from the authorized dealers, but from customers that get it directly from the authorized dealers. Because my retail presence is so big, I get a lot of that stuff offered directly to me. And you can almost tell, I can tell when ADs are getting it, because one day I'll wake up and 5 people will be offering me a new 41 millimeter sub, or a Batgirl, or a root beer, or the Datejust. So one thing I will say when it comes to getting stock though is, even like I mentioned a minute ago, even paying market price when buyers are willing to pay market price, it's been hard to find some of the hot models lately. I think it's due to a couple of things. You've got these auctions. Imagine nothing about watches, but on the news you see this Patek flipping or selling for $31 million. It catches your attention. every year we have these auctions going on. You see watches, they're just fetching more and more and more. And people think they're going to sell here and they end up selling way up here. So what you've got is now you've got this whole surplus of investors, not watch traders or not watch collectors, just investors looking for places to park extra cash that they've got. You've got them coming into the business, buying up watches. With the recent pandemic in 2020 that we just went through, you've got the manufacturers shutting down for months at a time. So you've got twice as many buyers looking for half as many watches.
Yeah.
It's a simple, now you're just seeing a true example of supply and demand. And then on top of that, if you think about the true collectors that are also now looking at it from an investment standpoint, people aren't just buying one of a hot model and moving on. They're buying two, they're buying three. And I'm guilty of it myself. I'll just use an example. I have a white ceramic Daytona in my collection. And if I get offered another one at a fair price, I'm going to take it. I'm just going to keep it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, at the end of the day, as I've already said, you know, the market's probably not too different in America than it is in the UK. I think here, there's been maybe one or two issues that I'm not sure if it's particularly, you know, just the UK that's experiencing some of the problems we're having maybe with authorised dealers, where they're insisting that clients buy a lot of other goods before they're given a chance to buy, say, just a regular Submariner, etc. Is that the situation the same in the United States?
It is very much. And I actually did a video called Playing the Game with the AD, and I talk about that exact thing where nowadays, there's really only two ways to do it. It's to play the long patience game, building rapport, you know, being persistent, and just hoping that the salesman that you found and started building this relationship with has a heart, I guess, and is willing, that really wants to get you a piece because they can tell you're a true collector. The other way is to simply play the game along with them. You're going to have to go in there and you're going to have to buy the models that don't make money, and you're going to have to take some losses and try to flip those. And then hopefully they offer you the desirable pieces. I also just talked about recently where if you look back 6 months ago, what they would try to do is get you to commit to buying a gold piece or a ladies piece or something with factory diamonds, where you're going to take a pretty significant loss. And then they'd either put you on the list, or I've heard a number of instances where they'll actually pair them together. You come in today and buy a presidential, we'll give you a sub. You buy a Yachtmaster 2 in all gold, we'll give you a GMT. Now, back then, and we all know that the authorized dealers in Rolex knows what's going on in the secondary market. It's no surprise to them. So when they pair those things like that, they're just offsetting one profit with a loss you're going to incur. But now, with the inventory dried up as much as it is, this is actually the best time. If you're going to play that game, get in there and buy gold pieces. Pretty much any rose gold piece right now is trading at or above retail. Yachtmaster 2s in solid gold, where they used to lose $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, are trading $2,000 less than retail. So it's not if you're going to play that game, it's a good time to do it.
Absolutely. I had a report today from one viewer, and I haven't verified it, but he's told me that he's been quoted a 5-year wait for an 18-karat gold president. Can you believe that?
Wow. I've had clients, and again, I'm on the other side of it, so I know what ADs, especially the ones that are local to me, I know what ADs are getting what, because they're all getting offered to me. And the wait list thing, it's a complete joke. And I'll tell you this, if it doesn't matter what they tell you, if they go in there and say, buy this and I'll put you on a wait list. Well, guess what? I'm on a wait list with multiple ADs, and I spent hundreds of thousands, if not in the tune of $1 million or more with ADs, and I still haven't gotten stuff I've been promised. And one thing I'll say is that if that AD offers diamonds in their store, if they're not just a Rolex authorized dealer, if they offer any type of other jewelry, especially diamonds, and you're not buying diamonds, it doesn't matter how many hundreds of thousands of dollars you sell or you buy from them in watches, there's always some guy that's willing to walk in there and spend, $50,000 to $100,000 on a necklace for his wife. That's the guy that's going to get the watches he wants, because the margins.
I think that's absolutely spot on, and very sound advice. It's the same advice that I give my viewers. I want to ask you, what sort of changes as being a watch dealer made to your life, both the good and the bad, the positives and the negatives, would you say?
I would say the positives are, I guess the thing I get told the most is how lucky I am to get to wear the pieces that I get to hold and see the kind of watches and timepieces that you couldn't imagine doing. I mean, to hold or to actually physically own the amount of watches that I've been able to buy personally and trade in and out of doing this, it would have taken me, 10 plus years or getting extremely wealthy in some other industry. So I would think that's probably the biggest positive, is that I'm surrounded by the very thing I love, which also answers the second question. The negative, I was trying to think about this the other day because you kind of hinted at this question. I can't think of a negative, because even if you look at the 15 hours a day that I put in, I never sleep. I've lost watches. We've been hit with wire fraud. We've lost money. My phone never stops ringing. I'm always on the move, and sometimes that cuts into my social life, but I don't regret any of it. I don't look back over the last 3 years and regret anything, because I genuinely have a passion for what I do. And it's, they say that whenever you do what you love, you never really work a day in your life. And that's kind of how I feel. So I don't feel that it's had a negative impact.
I think that's a great ethos, and I hope it stays that way. I think, some of us more sort of, let's just say, old timers, as it were, when we do go through the bad time, it's like you say, a wire fraud or something hits us. It happens to us all. It happens to the best of us. I think my saying is, look, it's part of the job. You win some, you lose some, but you win a lot more than you lose.
Exactly. I'll tell you, we've actually we're kind of, it's funny you mentioned that, because right now we're crossing our fingers that this wire doesn't, or this credit card transaction doesn't get recalled. We have a gut feeling we may have just gotten hit with credit card fraud, and it was because I won't go into the whole situation. It's going to play out in my video, but my mind was over here. I had another customer in, and then something was going on over here, but there was a gut feeling. And in this business, on a gut feeling, 9 times out of 10, that gut feeling is always right. Yeah, and so we're just kind of crossing our fingers that this $20,000 transaction that happened yesterday doesn't get reversed.
Well, I've got my fingers crossed for you. For sure.
If it does, I will be on here creating a video on what went wrong, and I know what we did. So we're just going to see if it pans out.
It takes a lot of courage, I've got to say, to be, another thing that I admired about yourself. It takes a lot of guts to be an active watch dealer and an active YouTuber, because you don't need me to tell you what you can leave yourself open to. You're out there for the world to criticize. You put yourself in front of the world. It's a brave decision, but I think it says a lot about you as an individual. How is that mix working for you right now, would you say?
I'd say it's doing well. I mean, whenever I started my Instagram account at the beginning of this journey a little over 3 years ago, so that's where I got my start, was Instagram. And I knew when I started that it was going to be all about building my name somehow to be able to compete with guys that actually had a lot more money than I did.
Yeah.
I used to do my first 8 months or so on Instagram. I was just posting pretty much the same old content every other watch page was posting, and I was doing it just maybe a little bit different, and I was getting some traction. But I remember there was a day where I was actually talking about something, and I mentioned having been to prison, and it was like all of a sudden that little glimpse into my personal life. I think I actually was one of the first times I showed my face behind the Instagram account too. I noticed my engagement spiked. And I went back to posting the same normal watch, consistent stuff, and engagement would stay here. But anytime I'd post something personal, like me at a gym, me out to eat, the engagement would spike. And so I started seeing this trend of people want to see who's behind the camera, actually. And if you look at a lot of the watch pages out there, you don't really know who they belong to. And I remember for a year and a half, people have been telling me I need to get onto YouTube. My fear of getting onto YouTube was that I didn't have any content to put out there, and if I did, I was going to be forced to replicate what everybody else was already doing, because I'm nowhere near an expert in this. I don't claim to be. I never will claim to be. I still don't even think I know as much as people think I know. I'm just good at putting it all in a entertaining video. But what I didn't want to do was go on there and talk reviews and do the same thing that everybody else was doing. So for a year and a half, I just didn't get on YouTube. Well, then it got around to where I started getting the itch to maybe I do need to get on YouTube, and I started studying. I actually studied 20 different YouTube pages, all related to the watch industry. Or if I were a watch person, which I was, and I was watching YouTube, which channels am I watching?
Yeah.
I spent 3 months researching and reviewing 20 different pages. I ranked them and categorized them from education to entertainment, view count to time on YouTube to likes for the first 24 hours, and how much engagement each profile is getting. And one of them kept sticking out overall, and it was Producer Michael's.
Yeah.
And Producer Michael is not a watch dealer. He films lifestyle, and he just recently surpassed 1 million subscribers. Whereas you see all these other watch channels, yours, Roman Sharf's is one of my favorite. It's very educational, but it gets less views. Now it's much higher quality, but again, you and Roman Sharf have something that I don't, and it's experience in the business and skill. I couldn't compete with y'all, and if I came on here trying to replicate what you're doing, it would just be, in my sense, another copycat. So
yeah, I think you're doing a good job of what you're doing at the moment. Definitely, absolutely.
Yeah. As I was looking through all these profiles, I realized that the ones that got the most engagement were videos that incorporated more of the lifestyle on there. Adrian from Bark and Jack would do these where he goes out in the streets of London and does whatever. And then Christian from Theo and Harris went to one of my favorite videos from him is he went to somebody else's house and he's walking around the guy's house selling watches. That's what I noticed, is that watch dealers are very private, and there's good reason behind it. But the ones that showed a glimpse of their life and a glimpse of what they do, is those videos are the ones that always got the most exposure and the most engagement. And so that's kind of when I decided, okay, well, I'm already kind of doing this on Instagram. Let me try it out on YouTube and see how it works.
It's very interesting, because I think your channel is going to grow tremendously, because your channel's almost become a little bit like a soap opera. I kind of want to see the next episode.
Exactly.
And I think that's great. I've got a couple of questions for you as we get towards the end of the video. Firstly,
sure.
What would your advice be to, let's go for other people that want to be a watch dealer? What would your tips be to anyone that wanted to become a watch dealer? Because right now, you're probably the best example that I can find on YouTube to give those tips or to offer those tips.
To somebody wanting to be a watch dealer, I would say it's about education. If you're wanting to get in and try this, you need to, if I could just jump straight to a tip, pick a brand and pick a model within that brand that you like, something you'd enjoy wearing. Here's what I did. I picked I picked a brand. At the time, Breitling. I picked a couple models that I wanted to wear for myself. I researched everything I could about those models, prices, color, dial colors, bracelet options, retail prices. And then when you've got an idea of those two models, get online as if you were going to buy this piece for yourself as a consumer and start researching it. How do you do comps? What do we all want to do? We want to find the best price. Get on there and find it. And as you do this, you're going to start realizing what market price is on this watch. If market price shows, we'll just use an easy number, $3,000, $3,200, $3,300, $3,400, that seems to be the average asking price. And then you get on a forum somewhere and you find this watch for $2,700, buy it. And then use that little gap to resell it. In the beginning, I would say don't focus on profit, focus on volume. Get your name out there and just get a deal done. Get through that whole experience, the buying, the researching, the buying, the selling, and doing it all safely, and see how you feel about that first transaction. And if you enjoy it, if you enjoy the adrenaline and the thrill, then try another one, and then try another one, and then try another one.
And some of the best advice, and my own words in many respects, my own thoughts and views, some of the best advice I've heard, I think you're exactly right. I've said myself in the past about focusing on one brand, couple of models, feel your way into the job, get your confidence levels high. What about people that are buying What advice would you have for people that are thinking of getting into, maybe someone that's getting into their first watch, or maybe thinking about putting a little portfolio together?
Okay. I would say from the buyer side, here's some tips I would say. Don't dealer hop. Now, I can tell you all the research, pick what you like, all that. I think you guys already know that. But what's going to help you when it comes to buying the watches is don't go dealer price shop. Don't call Paul and say, hey, how much will you give me for this watch, or how much will you sell this for? And then when Paul tells you $2,000, you come to me and say, hey, Paul will do it for $2,000. Will you do it for $1,900? It's a small community. We all talk. It doesn't create rapport the same way you'd have to build rapport with an authorized dealer. You've got to do it with secondary market dealers. So pick a couple guys that you trust, you like, get a recommendation from a friend of yours, and just go with that guy. Work with that guy directly. Another tip would be do your research. If you're going to call a dealer and make an offer on a watch, make an educated offer. Make an offer based on research or data that you found. Don't just call us up and give us a lowball offer, because anytime you do, the first thing that we're gonna think is you're not serious, and 9 times out of 10 they're not. And 2, the next thing I think of is that you're just calling every dealer you can, throwing lowball offers on everything they have listed on their site, hoping that they bite on something and they're desperate enough to sell it. And then even then, if you do that, be ready to make the purchase. Now, I can't tell you how many times people have called me up, negotiated a price, and I say, okay, you know what? To get the deal done, pick up a new customer, I will take your price. And then the next thing they says, okay, let me call you back in 2 weeks when I have the money ready. I'd say the last tip. Oh, go ahead.
Anthony, listen, I don't know how old you are, mate, but you talk like a 60-year-old watch dealer. You seem to have been. Are you sure you've not lived before?
I don't know, man. I have deja vu a lot lately, but I do want to add one more in, and this is for my dealers out there. This is to the retail buyers, but I think my dealers are going to appreciate this. Guys, ask your wives before you start watch shopping, or put them on the phone. I can't tell you how many deals I've lost to the wife. So.
Well, I'll tell you what we do in the UK. When we have a shop, we make sure that when we put the watches in the window, we always make sure that we put some items in the window that are going to attract the wife as well.
The wife, absolutely.
Otherwise, they're just pulling them away from the window. So you've always got to put something in the front to keep the girls happy, to make sure the men get their time browsing in the window. Anthony, it's been absolutely brilliant having you on tonight. I hope this is not the last time. I wish you every success, both in your watch dealing career. I don't think you're going to need my best wishes, mate. I think you're going to do a grand job with your YouTube channel as well. And I sincerely hope to be meeting you in Dallas one day.
Hey, man, you tell me when and where you come in. I will treat you out, or I will treat you as appreciative as I am for you to have me on the channel. It's been a pleasure to be on here. So it's definitely not going to be the last. It's the first of many, I hope, as well.
Guys, if you haven't checked out Anthony's channel already, please do so. I'm going to leave a link in the video description below. Sometimes I normally put a link to a particular video, but in this case I'm not. You need to go and watch the whole channel. Thank you so much, Anthony. Take care, my friend. Stay well, and we will speak again soon.
Paul, pleasure. Anytime.